Peace, everybody. This is the first of a three-part series, and this first installment is called Man I Feast, which is fitting for today, 11/11, at least according to the calendar that we agree upon, or the month designation that we agree upon. From a more ancient perspective, this is the 9th month, so this is really 9/11, but according to our agreed upon calendar, this is 11/11. So based on that, because agreements are important, I have something I'll read for you, and then again, this document is titled Man I Feast. Introduction. We start our journey by looking at the word synchronicity, which means same time. Ultimately, this word has varied meaning, depending on how you view the world and the cosmos. Presently, we live in a Cartesian world where the concept of spirit is considered to either be non-existent or separate from the physical, mechanistic world. From a mechanistic viewpoint, the idea of synchronicity is one of fantasy, no more than mere coincidence. Even with the mentioning of the word coincidence, we must take a moment to think deeper. This word has become quite misunderstood, for it literally means two happenings to occur at the same time. However, this phenomenon has come to represent something that shouldn't be taken seriously. Prior to the emergence of the Cartesian era, though, there still lingered a connection between what we could consider today as science and spiritual, magical, or unseen phenomena. One of the main institutions directly involved in hiding and dismantling this connective mental and spiritual tissue is the Roman Catholic Church, which we'll refer to here as the RCC. As part of a full-on attack on ancient knowledge, the same institution created the word propaganda. As you continue reading, we'll get into a deeper discussion of the word propaganda and why it's so detrimental to man as a collective. Title of this next section is Astrology. One specific ancient body of knowledge the RCC worked hard to suppress is astrology, while astronomy was maintained and tolerated as part of the scientific canon. The latter, with its more mechanistic approach to the heavens, fit into the Cartesian model. However, there once was a time when astrology and astronomy were considered as necessary parts of the same body of knowledge. Astronomy identifies the physical structure and location of the heavenly bodies, while astrology addresses their archetypal energy signatures. While working tirelessly to remove astrology from the world, the RCC as a whole continued the practice of the very science it condemned. We see evidence of this in the naming of the astrological house systems. Probably the most familiar system in the West is the Placidus method. Interestingly, Placidus was a devout Catholic monk who just so happened to have studied astrology. Why would a so-called quote-unquote holy man be studying the quote-unquote devil's science? According to astrologer Rick Levine, the Vatican has the largest astrological library in the world. We could go on and on in regard to this discovery, but for now, our purpose has been served. Next section. It always comes back to language. I mentioned earlier that the RCC invented the word propaganda. In the book Realm of the Ring Lords, the author has this to say, quote, Inasmuch as history is mostly written by its winners, so do conquerors generally regard the religions of the vanquished as being devilish and mightily powerful in terms of magic. This has the effect of heightening the perceived powers of the conqueror's own belief, a perception which can then be reinforced by continued successful persecution and the expropriation of that other religion's articles of faith. And so, the God of the overwhelmed faith is portrayed as a devil by the victors. End quote. The same author later goes on to say, quote, "It is important to recognize that although the word propaganda has moved into general usage, it was in fact first introduced by the Roman Church as a specific aspect of dogma. The word originated from Church Latin akin to the propagation of plants, as in breeding like or cloned specimens from a parent stock, and first appeared in the Congregatio Propaganda Fide, the Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith. In 1662, Pope Gregory XV established the College of the Propaganda of other than Rome. Hence, the Church not only practices propaganda, it invented it." End quote. To further expound, here is some etymological information provided by the origin of English words. Quote, "Propagate means first, to fasten vine slips on the trellis, to produce more. Then it went on to become what has grown to the world and a world of propaganda." End quote. The same author goes further to say, quote, "Propaganda is the Latin gerundive form, what should be propagated, and that the latter was first used figuratively in Congregatio de Propaganda Fide, established in 1622 by Pope Gregory XV. So we have here some conflicting dates. One book is saying 1622, one is 1662, and they may be actually two different things, because 1662 is the College of the Propaganda. 1622 is maybe of a directive or a papal bull of sorts. Either way, though, we know that in the 17th century, we can agree upon this, that in the 17th century, the connotative usage of propaganda created by the RCC emerged. All right, back to the document. Let it not be overlooked that the word propagate originates from the same root as the word pagan. What is significant about this is that the connotative usage assigned to the word by the RCC serves as a direct attack on the word pagan and what it embodies. The word pagan derives from the same basic root family as propaganda, which is pag, P-A-G. As a sidebar, from the root family pag, we also get the word peace. Next section, biblical and historical significance. In the Old Testament of the Bible, we find several references to the male deity Yahweh commanding the Israelites to destroy the Canaanite culture. Although these are mythological stories, they still have some historical significance. The title of Canaanite is one of many used to reference an ancient people who populated the entire earth. These people are also known as Saba, which transliterates into the name Sheba. From these names, we also get the term Sabbath. Returning to the book Realm of the Ring Lords, we find a deeper explanation, starting with the reference to a pagan stag god named Kern, spelled K-E-R-N, also known as Cernunnos, the Horned One. The author writes, quote, "The legacy of Cernunnos was prevalent in Gaul and Gaelic Britain, where, as a god of fertility, abundance, and the underworld, he was said to be born at each winter solstice to marry the moon goddess at the Maytime feast of Beltane, and to die at the summer solstice. Thus, he represented the continuing cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, a base culture of all pagan belief, which also found its way into the birth, death, and resurrection faith of the Christian religion." End quote. The same author goes on to say, quote, "The stag was the totem animal of the Tuatha De Anu, while the goat was originally symbolic in ancient Egypt as Kim of Capricorn. In about 2800 BC, the zodiacal goat was introduced by the second dynasty Pharaoh Ranib in the Nile Delta city of Mendes. Kim is sometimes referred to as Kim of Mendes. In the esoteric tradition, the pentagram was indicative of enlightenment and was associated with the pre-Jewish Sabbath, a ritualistic period of reflection and experience outside of general toil. For this reason, Kim of Mendes was called the sabbatical goat, which derives today's use of the word sabbatical in academic circles." End quote. Let's take a moment to make it clear that the Tuatha De Anu are ancient pagans, the people of Saba, Sheba, the ancient Celts, Druids, etc. Additionally, they are the same people whom history refers to as the Moors, and furthermore as the Twa, also known as the Pygmies. Here also has been presented proof of the importance of astrological and linguistic knowledge. Just in the character of Cernunnos alone, we see a reference to astrological symbolism and how misunderstanding of language has helped to fuel a stew of ignorance throughout the world. The Catholic intended use of the word propaganda has unfortunately been fully realized. Next section, Pisces and Aquarius. The rise of the RCC is arguably synonymous with the astrological age of Pisces, an era that history has shown to represent oppressive masculinity, belief as opposed to knowledge, the overthrow and hiding of ancient gnosis, countless wars, pillaging, murder, and much more. The cyclical cosmic return of the age of Aquarius, then, can be likened to the birth of the Christ child, which we understand to be a symbolic yet unimaginably powerful phenomenon. It can partly be classified as a grand awakening, which includes a reclamation of the knowledge that has been suppressed. As a result, the scientific body of astrology is becoming more and more popular. People are discovering that it's much more than just the weekly horoscope that used to appear in the Sunday newspaper. Instead, it is the ancient of ancient sciences, with a breadth of complexity that is far-reaching. One of the benefits of astrology is that, as the word horoscope suggests, it provides a view of the cosmic hour, which is also the face of Horus. It's the cosmic clock, and it allows us an opportunity to determine what time we are. It can be said that this cosmic clock has magical properties, with the term magic being one of the most grossly misunderstood terms available to the English-speaking tongue. Next section, what is magic? At the risk of offering an overly simplified definition, I submit that magic is the power of knowing. In the more distant past, the term was referred to as divining or divination, which is what reading the cosmic clock somewhat allows one to do. In essence, the RCC, through the Inquisition, has worked for centuries to tar this very scientific aspect of the human capability, relegating it to being the quote-unquote devil's work. But Isn't the farmer who uses the almanac to determine when it's best to plant a crop divining? Isn't the meteorologist who monitors the atmosphere to forecast the weather divining as well? You see, we live in a world governed by magic, but not in the sense you may think. However, a small group of people have decided which forms of magic are okay for the common people to practice. Next section, man, hands. When we look at ancient spiritual texts, we often see references made to husbandry, farming. In the Egyptian mythological saga, we learn that Isis and Osiris taught man how to cultivate wheat, again pointing to some form of farming. But one of the key symbolic motifs to glean from this is that working the land requires the usage of the hands. Furthermore, whenever we find a word that starts with man, we should immediately think about the hands, as in manage, maneuver, manure, manipulate, etc. From an esoteric standpoint, the hands are magical tools, for they have the ability to take something that is in a current state and work it until it reaches its full potential. That, my friends, is referred to as alchemy, the basis of our modern chemistry. I mentioned earlier that the people who were the subject of the RCC's oppression and suppression were the pagans, who could also be referred to by several other names. These are people who are proficient in working the land, which speaks to far more than just farming. Next section, man, I feast. The root man is found in a word that is an integral part of magic, manifestation. Let's break it down. As we already determined, man refers to the hands. The final part, fest, means to make holy. Thus, manifesting is making one's hands holy or powerful. In the Arabic language, when a woman cooks a meal for you, the customary way to give thanks is to say salam alaikum. This loosely translates into thank you for your hands. Hidden in the language is an ancient thread of symbolic gnosis, expressing the wonder of the hands in manifesting a filling and satiating meal, a feast if you will. Yes, the word feast and fest originate from the same etymological family. It is your divine right to make your hands holy and to see your efforts transformed into a beautiful and delicious metaphorical meal. Next section, manifestation, more science than magic. For the record, the term magic is just being used as a place word, for I know that it still strikes a chord of David Blaine or David Copperfield. As I've mentioned throughout this discussion, it is actually science. Let's go back to astrology. The window of otherworldliness that it allows is based on the fact that it studies the interaction of archetypal energies. Again, as referenced earlier, meteorology is just as much divination as astrology is, just on a more mundane level. It's based on the study of the interplay between atmospheric forces, unseen forces at that. One's location relative to certain weather patterns could be likened to manifestation, but how? When driving from Texas to North Carolina, I usually take Interstate 20. Before getting on the road, I'll check the weather forecast in the different states that I'll cross along the way. Therefore, if I leave Dallas at around 5 a.m., I know it takes roughly 6 hours to get to Vicksburg, Mississippi. I'll be looking ahead to see what type of weather I can expect around 11 a.m. This simply sums up how astrology can be used to aid in conscious manifestation. If you have a destination you know, and you know what weather to expect down the road, as in reading the horoscope or viewing the hour, you can more accurately navigate your future. In addition to providing a picture of the energy landscape of your desire, astrology aids in timing. We again return to our weather analogy. If you're privy to the forecast up ahead, you can get a better idea of when to leave for your journey. And you have a much greater chance of enjoying the best traveling conditions possible. Next section, using the moon. One of the simplest methods of manifesting using astrology is by focusing on the dates of the new moon each month. At this time, the energy is more conducive to initiating a new direction or plan. However, you should consider this quote from the previously mentioned astrologer Rick Levine. Quote, "It takes very little effort to drive a resonant circuit." End quote. What does this mean? For the purpose of manifesting, the goal initiated on the new moon shouldn't be something that happens out of thin air. Instead, it should represent a targeted, laser-like focusing of energy that is the culmination of efforts that were previously placed in motion. For example, if you've been planning a trip for a few months, you have a much greater chance of having a smooth journey than you would if you just woke up one morning and said, I'm going to drive from Dallas, Texas to North Carolina. By taking actions in advance, you already place yourself in a certain flow of energy. Thus, on the morning that you actually leave, you're less likely to have to scramble. You merely act out what you've already visualized and prepared for. The concept of it taking very little effort to drive a resonant circuit is far more scientific than it is magical in the modern sense. Before the seed can be planted, the soil must already be prepared. Thus, the actions bringing the unseen into reality become more mathematic and less mysterious. Final section, reclaiming your birthright. It is man's birthright to be able to make his hands holy. The age of Aquarius is the time when that reality is to manifest for those who are willing to move with the flow of energy. Again, it takes very little effort to drive a resonant circuit. And for the record, magic is neither bad nor evil, just as there is nothing insidious about igniting the pilot on a gas stove. It is the intent that warrants any judgment. One person may be harmlessly igniting the fire on the stove to prepare a delicious meal, while another may have the intention of burning a person's hand. Now is the time to allow your imagination to be as wondrous as it was when you were a little kid. Invite the unseen world of boundless potential to convene with you. This concludes the first document in the series, and this series is basically about Capricorn. And this has been Man I Feast. Today is a great day according to the agreed upon date, as I prefaced the video with. This is 11/11, November 11th, with the master number behind the 11 of 2020, which is 22. At mastersofthecosmos.com, you click on the button that says Master Students, and you scroll down, you'll find a document about manifestation. And it's only $11.11. This would be a great day to get over there and get you one. When you purchase it, it'll immediately be available for you to download it in PDF format. And if there's any issue with you downloading it, all you got to do is email me at info@mastersofthecosmos.com, and I'll get that right to you. All right. A new moon is coming up on the 15th, and I think it's a new moon in Scorpio. The moon's home is Cancer, which is water. So the moon will be in trine energy to its natal position, or to its natural domicile, which Cancer's water. It'll be in Scorpio in water. Okay. With all the craziness and chaos going in the world, order your temple. You do not have to be, and I don't have to be relegated to the chaos around us. Order your temple. Set your intentions and already be in the flow. It takes very little energy to drive a resonant circuit. Okay? If you've been doing the work, it's time to reap. It's time to reap. And I say this on an individual, microcosmic level and on a macrocosmic level. And you do the knowledge on that to figure out where I'm coming from. mastersofthecosmos.com. Click on Master Students. Go down and get your manifestation PDF. Also, if you would like to get some more in-depth information along these lines and other practical information that you can put to work, then go over and join us on Patreon, patreon.com/The Gnosis. Hey, remember, stay down until you get up, and when you get up, stay down. We'll be back soon with the last two parts of this series.